Just up the road is the Wild Honey Inn, Ireland's only Michelin star pub. And round the corner is the Burren Smokehouse, and that's where I'm off to visit next.
Birgitta, how are you?
Neven, you're
So nice to be here.
Birgitta Curtin has been smoking fish in Lisdoonvarna for 31 years, but last year she opened up a new visitor centre called Taste the Atlantic, a seafood journey.
When we opened this, it was really in response to, there was so many questions about where do we get our salmon from, and we do smoke two kinds of salmons. The wild salmon, which is this area here, we're talking about where the salmon comes from, how it's fished. It's extremely regulated, so we only get a small amount of wild salmon in season. It's all tagged, and all this exhibition here talks about that.
So how is the wild salmon caught?
So the wild salmon is caught in small boats, day trip boats, and it is draft netting. You use a net and round up the salmon. There are different versions of draft netting in different parts of Ireland, but it's very small and very regulated. Both the time of the day that you fish and what days to fish during the season. So here we are in Neven. This is the section about the Irish organic salmon. All this space here is explaining about what it looks like, where the salmon is being farmed on the west coast of Ireland. We wanted it to be very interactive.
Farm salmon can be quite controversial and not everyone is a big fan.
I know it is a complex issue, but what is produced on the west coast of Ireland, I believe, is extremely sustainably produced in reasonably wild environment. The salmon production in Ireland is actually in quantity like a drop in the ocean compared with other countries like Scotland and Norway. I believe that the sustainability of the production in Ireland is at the top end. So here we are in Neven. We're just doing the salting of the fish, which is the very start of the whole smoking process. It's just so important. You have to salt, otherwise you're not going to get the flavors. And also the salt actually opens up cells so that the smoke can come in. So at this stage we actually lose a little bit of moisture. It's actually part of the curing. The salt content is hugely important. It has to be 2.5% minimum, and we try to not overpower with salt. So the salmon would be here for maybe 3.5 to 4 hours, depending on the size of the fish.
And is it just salt? Do you add anything to it?
Every smokehouse have their own method, but we don't do any sugar, we just do salt, 100% sea salt.
Once the fish has been salted for the correct length of time, the salt is rinsed off the fillets, which are then dried on racks before being smoked.
What we have here is the oak shavings.
Okay.
We find it kind of gives a sweetness. We're very lucky to get hold of this locally. It's somebody who does a high-end woodcraft. It's quite difficult to get pure 100% oak, so we're very lucky to have that so locally.
And what's the difference in hot smoke and cold smoking?
Temperature, that's what it's all about. So the cold smoking is done at 31 degrees Celsius maximum, and the hot smoking goes up to 75 to 80 degrees Celsius, which means it's a much faster process. So the cold smoking takes basically 16 hours, 8 hours drying and 8 hours smoking. But the hot smoking takes only 8 hours, so half the time, 3 hours drying and 5 hours smoking.
After the salmon has been cold smoked for 8 hours, it's left to rest before being sliced and packed, ready for sale. When they're on the plate together. Right beside the smokehouse is the Roadside Inn, where Birgitta's husband Peter serves beer that he brews on site. When they're on the plate together, it's really interesting to see the difference in the cold smoked salmon and then your hot smoked salmon.
I know it's hugely different, both in texture and the taste, of course, as well after that. But you can see it's get a bit paler once it's hot smoked. The range of flavours we have here, for example, this here with the seaweed marinated. There's a trio of seaweed with the red, brown and green seaweed.
Okay.
They're all from nearby that we put together, especially for the flavour of the seaweed. We actually got a Great Taste Award for this one. We got a 3-star, 50 best out of 10,000 products, so that we were very proud to get it.
And what other flavours do you do?
We do honey, lemon and dill, we do whiskey infused, honey whiskey and fennel. The range of products is really important to us. It means that people can combine flavours a bit more. Like even the honey, lemon and pepper, it's interesting to have something very strong with something very mild.
And to complement the salmon, you have a selection of beers you brew here. Your husband does this, Peter, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's a microbrewery
Okay.
that we have, the Burren Brewery. Every batch is 250 litres only. We don't bottle for the moment. It's all on draft, just freshly brewed on a continuous basis.
So which one will I start with now?
So maybe start with the one without flavour, so just the plain cold smoked.
So will I taste one of the beers with it too?
Yeah,
or-
I think the black would go very well with
black,
that.
okay.
I mean, it's a classic, you know, stout
beautiful.
and seafood. It just, you know, it just goes very well together.
Gorgeous.
What do you think?
Delicious.
Okay, keep going with
Yeah.
the cold smoked,
All right.
and that's with the seaweed. So the
this is-
seaweed we get from the Clare coast here, a local organic producer. They mill it specially for us. We want to have not too big flakes and not too powdery
That's
either.
really good. Really
Mild.
gorgeous. Mild. Yeah.
It brings
Subtle.
a little bit of seaweed
Yeah.
flavour, but not overpowering.
And then the last one.
Then the hot smoked, we just did the plain hot smoked. We do one with dill as well.
And it kind of just flakes away, doesn't it? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's very different, kind of texture-wise. So what
You
beer
can-
will I taste with this now?
Well, maybe you try the Euphoria with that.
And what's
the
in it?
Euphoria is actually a wild yeast root beer made from herbs. There is no hops involved in it. It's a unique beer. Peter collected the yeast in the Burren. Imagine that, huh? It's from an old recipe. We use a lot of lemon verbena in the Euphoria. And I think it just citrusy flavours actually works extremely well with the salmon as well.
Well, you're a great team, the two of you, yourself and Peter. Well done.
What we are about is really artisan beer and artisan salmon.